Queer News Tonight was live at the White House ceremony for Respect for Marriage signing. Today was historic. At 3 p.m. Eastern, Queer News Tonight broadcast at the South Lawn of the White House for the President's signing ceremony of the Respect for Marriage Act. Anchors and longtime activists Todd and Jeff Delmay reported at the White House. As our audience knows, they were the plaintiffs of the 2014 action that was argued before the Florida Supreme Court to make same-sex marriage legal in the state of Florida. The at times boisterous outdoor event featuring legendary performers like Sam Smith and Cindi Lauper, and a literal who's who of American LGBTQ civil rights representatives from the communities of business, equality organizations, Congress, cabinet, and more. Highlights was a spontaneous moment where the crowd literally turned to the cameras and began to wave in celebration. Vice President Harris talked about her participation in the 2004 marriage at San Francisco City Hall, and then the fight to later repeal the passage of Proposition 8. Harris talked about President Biden and how he has promoted LGBTQ representation to every level of the federal government. And of course, the highlight of the signing ceremony was President Biden's near 20-minute remarks that recognized marriage equality plaintiffs like Todd and Jeff Delmay and all of those that have worked to make this moment possible. We will show you the Delmay reporting shortly. Today may have been one of the most important in LGBTQ history, as it is the first time that LGBTQ civil rights are not granted by a judge, but rather codified in federal law. This is live breaking news from Queer News Tonight. In just moments, we are going to go to the White House for President Joe Biden's signing ceremony of the historic Respect for Marriage Act. Today, Tuesday, December 13th, 2022, may be the most important date so far in LGBTQ civil rights.
On June 28, 2015, the Supreme Court ruled in a historic 5-4 vote in the Obergefell versus Hodges decision to make same-sex marriages legal in the United States.
You know, in context, it's a proud moment for us here at Queer News Tonight. First off, we're broadcasting this story, which may be one of the most important in American history, codifying through the House of Representatives, through the Senate, through the conference, reconciliation between the two, and now we're watching the signing ceremony of President Joe Biden of this. First time it's codified. Very important because we have won in the courts. And over the last number of decades, we've won many cases in front of judges, and now finally there's codification of marriage. The other thing that's interesting here as we watch these images at the White House is the anchor reporting that we are having from Todd and Jeff Delmay. I just think it's incredibly interesting that they were the context of the 2014 Florida Supreme Court case that ultimately overturned making marriage unconstitutional because it was passed in 2008 by 62% of the voters, and their case that they helped win in 2014, ultimately giving gay marriage the first week in January of 2015. Later, 6 months later, they watch the U.S. Supreme Court do it for all 50 states. And now today they're reporting for Queer News Tonight at the White House, seeing the final continuation of this process of civil rights for the LGBTQ community as it relates to marriage. I just can't imagine what's going through Todd and Jeff's mind in terms of where we are today.
And it's exciting to note that they were the ones supposed to be discussing this right now, but because they were part of that landmark case, they were actually asked to stand with the president as he signs this. So they are going to be on TV behind President Biden as he's doing the signing, then we'll be talking to them afterward.
This is life, it's clear to see, but darling, stay with me.
Okay. Well, this time, love wins. It's hard to take a ride
Thank you to everyone on the hard-fought victory generations in the making. It's been a long road, but we got it done. We're going to continue the work ahead, I promise you. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. And now, let me sign the Respect for Marriage Act into law.
Well, today is a very, very big day, and I predict Tuesday, December 13th, 2022, a decade from now, 50 years from now, this day will be recognized as one of the most important in LGBTQ history. Did we get everything we wanted? No, we didn't. This is not the Equality Act, but in terms of codifying marriage and protecting marriage in the United States, it's the springboard of getting to an Equality Act, for example. But it stops people like Clarence Thomas in his tracks. It stops him. And that's really big. I could not help but also recognize, as we were doing this broadcast, we were David Hopkins anchoring with me prior to the ceremony, and then Todd and Jeff. We have many pictures. Perhaps we can show some of them of Jeff and Todd today reporting at the White House for Queer News Tonight. It was interesting to me how boisterous the event was. It was a very big celebration event. I've already heard today from many of our friends saying, wow, this was really a fun event to watch, and it really was celebratory in what went on. One of the other things that I thought was really poignant, there was a great round of applause and a standing ovation for Nancy Pelosi. And it was a moment of, it was a beautiful moment because it talked about the very first speech that Nancy Pelosi made on the House floor when she first came to the House like 440 years ago.
Oh my God.
Of talking about LGBT rights. Her first words on the floor at the House was about LGBT. Her final act that she gets passed is Respect for Marriage Act from San Francisco, our mythical Oz home. It was just beautifully symbolic today. It was a privilege for me in any slight way to participate in this, and we were really happy to bring this to the LGBTQ community because we were virtually the only place in the United States that was able to do something like this. We thank Jeff and Todd Delmay for helping make it possible. What did y'all think about what we watched today?
Well, I would
Go ahead, please.
Oh no, I was going to say, I definitely, as far as Nancy Pelosi, it was definitely a full circle moment. I mean, to think she started there, and that was her first speech about LGBTQ plus rights, and then now at the end, and this was really refreshing to me because after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, I was thinking, oh my God, they're coming for.
Oh, they for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so, yeah.
This is a day for the activists and the organizers, for generations of activists and organizers, that today at the White House, LGBTQ people, transgender people, people in drag were on the White House lawn watching this historic bill be signed into law. All of those people who have worked for generations to win hearts and minds to make this day possible, this day is for them. And, watching this story it made the hairs on my arms stand up. It gave me goosebumps. I remember when I first started college, the first thing that got me into politics was watching then President George W. Bush give his State of the Union address and call on the United States Congress to pass a constitutional amendment to define marriage as between one man and one woman and discriminate against us in the United States Constitution. To go from that to then seeing Joe Biden as vice president come out before his president, Barack Obama, in support of same-sex marriage, and then get to see him today sign the Respect for Marriage Act into law, man, what a powerful, powerful journey we've been on. And it's because of all of the people who've put their blood, sweat, and tears into that.
Absolutely.
You know, I want to first say this is really personal for me, seeing two of my best friends on the White House lawn who put their lives on the line for the LGBTQ community here in Florida and across the country. What Jeff and Todd Delmay did, which was open up their lives, put themselves at risk, their family at risk to fight for marriage equality in Florida. And now to see this on the lawn of the White House when they received the invitation, and I got a text message about it. As the hairs were standing up, I had tears in my eyes because I knew what a big day it was for them, and I knew how much they gave of their personal lives. And I can only tell you it's a lot that they gave of their personal lives and an intrusion of their personal lives to get to where they are today. So it's historic. It's a wonderful day. And I think, again, the fight isn't over, but it's good to celebrate the victories when we have them.
You know, today when we were preparing, as David said in the broadcast, we were completely live. Todd and Jeff were planned to do that, but they got surprised with the inclusion that they had. In our full broadcast today, you see them behind the president, and they're with approximately 20 plaintiffs from around the United States of different court cases that were really critical. And so as a result, their phones are taken away and you can't do. And so our immediate plan, they've done it after now the event, and we're going to show that to you of the reporting that they did on the White House lawn, but they couldn't do it in advance. So David and I are helping in terms of the setup of the incorporation of this. During the reporting this afternoon, we talked extensively about Florida. And you think about, well, we start in 1977 when the Miami anti-LGBT ordinance comes into effect. And then the state's issue of creating the no same-sex marriage prohibition by the Florida House and the Florida Senate, with the leader that drafted that rule saying publicly after its passage, it was designed to tell the gay community to go back in the closet and stay there. I've done almost an exact quote. That was, I know. And then in 2008, we remind you that Florida passed Amendment 2, 62% to make gay marriage, same-sex marriage, unconstitutional, just in 2008. And then Todd Delmay and Jeff Delmay come along in 2014 to be the plaintiffs, to overturn that by the Florida Supreme Court. And then 6 months later, we get it in the U.S. Supreme Court, and marriage is the law of the land. Those are great, incredible events. I just remind everybody, I love both observations that were said. Today is an amazing day.
It is.
Because it's not a judge doing it. That's why it's amazing. We have fought and fought in Florida since 1977. Today, a big door of that fight of 40 years closes because of the codification of federal law. And it just concerns me a little that some of the voices in LGBT go, that's not enough. And it diminishes where we are today. No, you're not taking that away from me or anyone else. Today is humongously important for our community.
Yeah. So I'll agree with that. It's not enough, but it is monumental. I remember maybe like 15, 20 years ago, talking to my sister, and I'm like, one day it's going to be the law of the land that gay people are going to be able to be married. And she was like, no, that'll never happen. It'll never happen. And like you said, it's one thing for our president to come out and say, oh, this is going to happen, or the judges to say it's going to happen, but for the country and for everyone to vote on that, and for them to say that, you know, this is what the majority of the people in the country want, it's monumental.
I'm curious to everyone at the table. When you watch this, and we talk about the history of this fight over the longevity, the National Task Force has been central, Hollywood Council has been central, Pride organizations like My Hollywood Pride have been central, the HRC has been central, Trans Inclusive has been central, Transsocial. Do you think moments like today give hope to the trans community? that this is something we're going to see down the road, that this same length of fight, eventually we are going to win the fight? Does it give you hope today?
I think it does. I think it does. Every little step that the LGBTQ community makes, I think it's a step for us in the trans community. Sometimes us in the trans community, we feel that we're alone. A lot of times when, they have the don't say gay and all of things that just affect the gay or lesbian community, you don't see the same impact and the support from other people for trans issues, like the Board of Medicine with the Florida Department of Health. They're taking away our ability to get trans health care and all of the other things that are going on in the trans community. But it does bring hope, and hopefully we'll get the same support as the LGBTQ community.
And well, I always remind people in our community, same boat, different compartments. Because I think that, other parts of the community think, oh, we're separate. Like, you trans people, that's a whole other issue. And so I remind people that, listen, there's power in unity, and whether you want to be clumped together with us or not, the world clumps us together. LGBTQ. We're put together. And so I think that this is wonderful, because if, let's say, there wasn't protection, right? Then the focus would have been on, oh my gosh, fighting for gay marriage again. And we trans people probably would have been pushed to the side, I mean, that might, I mean, that might sound a little selfish, but I just know, because,
Very good point.
Yeah, because, I mean, for so long, we've been like the bottom of the totem pole. And, look, from Stonewall, we were kind of pushed to the side, and gay rights came along, and the lesbian with the women's movement and all of that.
It is a reminder before we move on to Ryan. Just one final reminder of the significance today. Again, I will say it out loud. A judge did not make this decision. Virtually every Democrat. I will say every Democrat, there was a few people that weren't present for various reasons, but every Democrat and a reasonable number of Republicans in bipartisan support made this happen in the House and made it happen in the Senate. And then in conference coming back together to make it happen, then a Joe Biden signing what we did today. That is historic. Historic on December 13th, 2022, that a judge did not do this. And also, I ask the question broadly, I think it sends signals of hope for our entire community. And the reason I do is we told the story of Florida today from 1977 and Anita Bryant days to December 13th, 2022, and what we watched today. In just 2008, just 14 years ago, 62% of Floridians voted to make same-sex marriage unconstitutional, just 14 years ago. And today, 70+% of Floridians support same-sex marriage. That is a gigantic swing of our cultural thinking in Florida and really all over America in just 14 years. There's hope. Today shows hope for everyone of L and G and B. T, by the way.
Yes.
It shows hope for everybody.
It does.
It's a great day for our community. A great day.
Al, if I could share just one final thought on the hope piece before moving on, and I'm going to speak right to the camera for this one. As a gay, cisgender, white guy, if we want to give hope to the trans community, then by our words and by our actions, our deeds, we need to show that we are standing with the trans community, because too many times in our history, we have been willing to forego the trans community in order to advance our own civil rights. And that is not okay. We are all in this boat together. We are one LGBTQ family. We are beautiful. We are diverse. We need to stand together.
You're here. Completely.
Thank you for that.
Great message.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.